Well, a very good morning from wherever you're watching us here in Nairobi and across the country. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Yambo, hoping that you're well from wherever you are joining us. So I'll be bringing you up to speed in just a moment. Today being Thursday is the Entertainment Thursday, and in the news this morning, definitely it's all about the Finance Bill 2024. Is Dr. William Ruto declined to sign or assent to the to the Finance Bill 2024, as you may know by now. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has accused, the NIS boss, that is Noordin Haji, of mishandling the demonstration. And so he's calling for his resignation. All that coming up in the news. And my colleague, that is Vivian Ndegwa, will also be with you later on in this particular program. So let's begin right there, where President William Ruto declined to sign the Finance Bill 2024 on Wednesday, citing he has listened to the voice of the people and has now withdrawn the bill. In an address to Kenyans at State House, Nairobi, the president said he had conceded Kenyans, even as he outlined the spirit behind the proposals contained in the bill that were aimed at responding to the government's development plan. Now, our reporter, that is Abdiaziz Hashim, now looks at what happens next, barely 3 days to the start of the next financial year.
When is Nairobi?
Thank you very much.
In an unprecedented move, President William Ruto moved to inform the country his decision to stand down the Finance Bill 2024 in its totality following violent protests witnessed across the country on Tuesday.
And listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
Ruto, who was Kwanza Island legislators, in withdrawing the bill, sought to explain to Kenyans the reasons behind the proposals in the bill that was aimed at financing the 3.9 trillion shilling budget.
And I am therefore proposing that because we have gotten rid of the Finance Bill 2024, it is necessary for us to have a conversation as a nation going forward.
The withdrawal of the bill now means the president will have to write to Parliament within 14 days, recommending the bill to be rejected in its entirety.
On the matter of development that you have said, minus the Finance Bill, it means that some of the development programs amounting to 200 billion shillings, we will have to cut down, to delay them. They will have to.
According to Article 115 of the Constitution, which stipulates the process of rejection of the bill once presented in Parliament. According to the article, the president has two options. 14 days after receiving the bill, the president will sign it into law or refer it to Parliament for amendments. If the head of state returns the bill to Parliament, MPs must either amend it after adopting the president's recommendation or pass it again without amendments. This shall be done with a two-thirds majority in the National Assembly. Clause 6 of the Constitution states that if the President does not sign the bill nor return it to Parliament within 14 days, it will be. President Ruto has further announced new austerity measures that will affect crucial state departments, including his office.
I am directing for immediate further austerity measures to reduce expenditure. Office of the President, the entire presidency, and extending to the entire executive arm of government.
Meanwhile, the head of state confirmed that at least 6 people lost their lives, more were injured during the protests.
Young people, 6 to be exact, 6 people yesterday lost their lives. Very unfortunately, they shouldn't have lost their lives.
Ruto condoled the families and friends of Kenyans who lost their lives during Tuesday's deadly protest, even as he called on Kenyans not to castigate the legislators for voting in support of the bill.
President William Ruto has also vowed to deal with corruption.
Thank you, Abdiaziz Hashim, for that report. Now, moments after President William Ruto said he will not assent to the Finance Bill 2024, Kenyans from different parts of the country have commended the move. According to those who spoke to KBC, the move is an indication that the president has listened to the people following bloody anti-finance bill protests across the country. The clergy in Nairobi has, in the meantime, urged the Gen Z to halt the demonstrations.
Nimefurahia sana venye ameweza kuitupilia mbali kwa sababu tulikuwa na malalamishi kama wananchi, na ingawaje tumeona ni kama wamekuja kama wamechelewa kidogo, juu kama wabunge wangefikiria ama wangesikiza maoni na kilio cha wananchi mapema, hatungefika mahali tulifika jana.
Tungemuomba ya kwamba next time asikubali tufika kwa maandamano, angalie vizuri, na Wakenya wakisema hawataki. Wakisema wanataka.
Fanya vizuri kutupulia hiyo finance bill kwanza, lakini kwa kusema ukweli alichelewa, angeistopisha kwanza saa zenye maandamano ilianza.
Amefanya jambo la busara sana kuhakikisha kwamba yeye ameonyesha mfano mzuri kwamba yeye ni rais ambaye alipigiwa kura na wananchi wa Kenya na anaweza wasikiza na afuate yale ambayo wanalia.
Rais, mimi ninakupa makofi ya kwanza, nimekufurahia kitu yenye umefanya. Wewe ni rais wangu ambaye mimi nilikuchagua. Ingalau tujawahi kutana na wewe, lakini ninashukuru kwa ile kitu yenye umefanya. Umefanya kama wanaume 10.
Kwanza ni kupongeza mkubwa wa serikali yetu ya Kenya ambaye ni Rais William Ruto kwa kuangalia na kuwa baba wa taifa, kwa manake ametupilia mbali ule mswada ambao ulikuwa umepitishwa.
Nakuja kushukuru president wetu kwa sababu ya hii siku ya leo, ya kwamba ameweza kurenounce hiyo finance bill, kwa sababu ilikuwa ni tatanishi sana na ilikuwa imeleta mambo mingi, na tunasema ya kwamba it is very very timely, ni kitu ambao ni ya maana, na tunasema asanti kwa sababu ya president. Kama angekuwa amefanya hivyo hapo bereni, tunaona ya kwamba hata ingekuwa na hii mambo mingi ambayo imefanyika.
Kabla mujapitisha chochote, wabunge wenzetu, watoto wetu, ni vizuri msikize ground inasema nini. Kwa sababu tumeona jana wabunge wakikimbilia huko chini ya bunge, vijana wetu wameamua kuingia mpaka bunge kila mahali.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now wants the National Intelligence Service Director General, that is Noordin Haji, to resign. Speaking in Mombasa, Gachagua alleges that Haji failed to notify the president on the magnitude of the protests to necessitate appropriate response. The Deputy President claims the NIS Director General frustrated competent officers in the service and allegedly brought in cronies who have messed up intelligence gathering, while lauding the President for listening to Kenyans to reject the Finance Bill 2024. Gachagua urged the young people to end their protests and organize themselves for meaningful discourse, as promised by the head of state.
We have a dysfunctional National Intelligence Service that has exposed the president, the government, and the people of Kenya. Had the National Intelligence Service briefed the president 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died. Property would not have been destroyed. Offices would not have been touched. There would have been no mayhem. But they slept on the job. I want to say that Noordin Haji must take responsibility. That occurred. He must take responsibility for the mayhem. He must take responsibility for failing President William Ruto. He must take responsibility for failing the government of the Republic of Kenya. He must take responsibility for failing the Kenyan nation by not doing his job and advising correctly. And he must do the honorable thing, not just take responsibility, but resign from that office and allow the president to pick a competent director general. As Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya and a I want to appeal to Generation Z to call off the protests for tomorrow because their cry has been heard by the president.
Now, the High Court in Milimani is expected to give directions on the deployment of the military to restore calm following violent anti-finance bill protests. This follows a move by the Law Society of Kenya that moved to court seeking conservatory orders to stop the process of deploying the military, citing irregularities in the process. This comes as the National Assembly gave the green light for the deployment of the military across the country on Wednesday morning to restore calm.
Angered by yesterday's killings of unarmed protesters, the lawyers' body moved to court to stop the deployment of the military, barely hours after the National Assembly gave the nod for their deployment. In the petition, the Faith Odhiambo-led society argues that none of the protesters who are against the Finance Bill 2024 are armed, and thus deploying the military is against the Constitution. SK argues that there was nothing in the protest that would have been deemed as an emergency to warrant military involvement. However, according to CS Duale, the Tuesday's protests were akin to security emergency following damage to key infrastructure. In a Gazette notice dated June 25th, the CS announced the deployment of the military to help police stop demonstrators from invading critical infrastructure. LSK has urged the court to suspend the decision to deploy the military until the case brought before it is heard and determined. Judge Lawrence Mugambi has certified the matter as urgent, and the case will be heard on Thursday. This comes as the National Assembly approved the deployment of the military until calm is restored.
Ruth Wamboi reporting there are 165 people reported for treatment at the Kenyatta National Hospital following street protests. From the number, 72 victims have been treated and discharged. At least 3 people due to the skirmishes and had from the health facility that is at the KNH. Addressing the media on Wednesday, Acting Director of Surgical Services at the facility, that is Dr. Benjamin Wabire, at the same time called on Kenyans to avail for a blood donation drive to assist the critically injured victims.
Hundreds of protesters injured during the Tuesday demonstrations were rushed to the Kenyatta Referral Hospital for treatment, with the facility receiving 2 fatalities.
We've treated and discharged around 72, and the remaining are in the hospital under treatment. Overnight, we operated 24 patients who are since recovering in various areas in the hospital.
Kenyatta National Referral Hospital Acting Director for Surgical Services, Dr. Benjamin Wabwire, says they have attended to 165 patients, with 1 patient dying while undergoing treatment. 8 victims are undergoing surgery at the health facility, with 23 awaiting additional procedures.
Varied from blunt trauma to a few gunshot wounds, particularly a majority of them were rubber, and a few, I think just about 6 live bullets.
As treatment for the injured protesters is ongoing at the Kenyatta Referral Hospital, the hospital management has kicked off a blood donation drive, calling on Kenyans to avail themselves for the noble cause.
At the Nairobi County Funeral Home, relatives who lost their loved ones during the riots have appealed for financial support from the government and well-wishers to bury them.
A boy who is a 4th year in Rwanda University was shot yesterday on the head. Last night from midnight, then we came here in the morning, but it has not taken us long. So we want to go and get the body and transfer to the next facility.
Haujajipanga na kitu yoyote, kama mimi nafaa nimzike kesho, so niko hapa kutafuta pesa ya sanda, pesa ya kaburi, hivyo kitu kama hizo. Na pia kwa wale wenye watakuwa wanasafirisha mwili, mimi ningeomba pia serikali iweze kuwasaidia. Juu pia kuna hapo katika hao wenye wameuliwa ndio ni vijana, na pia wako na familia zao zitabaki zikihangaika.
Indeed, our condolences to those who have lost their loved ones. Azimio la Umoja Coalition has called for the immediate release of all Kenyans arrested in connection to the Finance Bill 2024 demonstrations. The opposition coalition has further demanded an end to what it claims is arbitrary abductions. This as Azimio opposed the move of the military to maintain law and order among the civilians.
As the country comes to terms with the aftermath of Tuesday's deadly demonstrations in Nairobi and beyond, Azimio la Umoja coalition politicians have come out guns blazing. Led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, the politicians have pointed a finger at the government over the deaths of the innocent demonstrators.
From our accounts, of the 157 were killed last night by police in Githurai. At parliament buildings, lives of more than 50 protesters, including a journalist and medical doctor, were cut short by the police.
In their address to the nation, the politicians further demanded the government disclose to the nation the criminals who are said to have infiltrated the demonstrations.
Ruto must also tell the nation who these abettors, funders, and orchestrators of the anti-finance bill demonstrations are.
Kalonzo also termed as unlawful the decision to deploy the military to quell protests.
Further to the shock of the nation, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense issued a Gazette notice deploying the military to assist the police in dealing with the unrest without approval of the National Assembly as required by the Constitution of Kenya.
Additionally, the coalition has vowed to push for the release of Kenyans said to have been arrested in connection to the Finance Bill 2024 demonstrations.
We demand an end to the Gestapo-like abductions, killings, and immediate abductees.
Now, religious leaders and elders have called for sobriety in handling the grievances raised by protesters who have hit the streets demanding for the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024. The leaders, while calling on police to stop using excessive force in repulsing protesters, emphasized the need for the government to engage the youth in constructive dialogue. The Kenya Human Rights Commission has demanded for the immediate arrest and prosecution of officers involved in the fatal shooting and killing of several demonstrators. This as the Kenya Editors Guild called on the Inspector General of Police to ensure the safety of journalists during the protests, saying they have been subjected to attacks from both the protesters and the police.
We urge our youth to exercise sobriety and restraint on the street and social media platforms. After all is said and done, we have a nation that must stand the test of time.
We urge the President of Kenya to speed up the process of spearheading engagements towards resolving the issues at hand, as he spoke when addressing our beloved nation. We also urge the security agents to exercise utmost restraint when enforcing law to avert losing more lives.
Our children, our grandkids, please, to allow for what the President has promised, please, if you can postpone any other mass action and take full advantage of organizing how you're going to engage with government.
We urge the youth, and we're saying this in regard to what the President has done. We urge the youth to this gesture by the President and stop further demonstrations across the country.
Na tunafikiria na tunaomba Mungu kwamba hakuna neno lingine litaharibika zaidi ya hapo tuko.
We don't get any money for it. We are not funded for it. We are just angry that we can actually insist for the last 2 weeks that the finance bill needs to be reconsidered, and MPs whom we elected and who should be representing us can neglect to hear what we are talking about, can consistently or even as they behaved, they can just go ahead and disregard whatever is going on in the country.
Police are supposed to ensure security in a context where you respect democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. So we are watching the space. As they continue being complacent and compliant, they are the ones who are going to be bearing the ultimate criminal responsibility.
On that note, we take a short break. I'll be back with more news. Thank you for staying with us. Still on the finance bill. Now, a day after the violent anti-finance bill protests in the capital, Nairobi, traders returned to the central business district to a trail of destruction. Parliament buildings remained cordoned off as a crime scene, with similar scenes witnessed at the City Hall. Forensics, while cleaners were busy picking up the debris and cleaning following the inferno at the City Hall that houses the county government offices. Our reporter Giveson Maina was in the CBD and gives us details of the start of the restoration.
Barely 24 hours after the red protesters stormed Parliament buildings, the atmosphere was a stark contrast of Tuesday's events, the evidence of the destruction left behind, telling the tales of what transpired. Parliament was on Wednesday cordoned off as a crime scene, with detectives combing it for forensics. A communication from the Speaker indicated that non-parliamentary staff, including the media, had been disallowed access. Both the National Assembly and the Senate lawmakers were back in session, however with tight security as armed police officers patrolled. At Parliament buildings, already repair works of the perimeter wall that was destroyed by the protesters gas house. Repairs were also being done at the County Hall, housing Nairobi's Governor office, after the building was partly set ablaze. A few meters of the Supreme Court, the aftermath of the protest was evident, as the workforce from the judiciary were cleaning debris from breakage and destruction of the Supreme Court premises. A building housing Uganda Embassy along Kenyatta Avenue was also set up in flames on Tuesday and is under construction. Nairobi County deployed hundreds of its staff to clean the roads of the debris, including stones and tear gas canisters. After protesters trooped to Nairobi's central business district yesterday in the anti-finance bill protest and even broke the perimeter wall of the Parliament buildings and gained the entry, police have still been deployed today to man security.
Give us some minor reporting there. A family in Mombasa is decrying the death of their 20-year-old son who died in Mwembetari, that is during the anti-finance bill protest. Emmanuel Giggs Tata, a second-year student, is alleged to have lost his life after inhaling tear gas while at the bus stage. Meanwhile, government buildings, including Bima Towers, which houses various government offices, and Huduma Center at the Central Business District, bore the brunt of the anti-finance bill protests.
According to eyewitnesses, Tata, a second-year student at Meru Polytechnic, was caught in a thick cloud of tear gas lobbed by the anti-riot police officers who were dispersing protesters at the Mwembetari bus stage leading to his...
We were at Mwembe when the police lodged tear gas. They cornered the youth between Digo Road, roundabout, that is Absa roundabout, up to Ken Computers. They attacked us from both sides, launching tear gas canisters where Giggs could not breathe anymore. We walked with him a few meters and he collapsed, claiming that, before he collapsed, he claimed that the tear gas had disenabled his lungs to breathe.
The devastated family is now seeking justice for their son and is appealing to the government for assistance with funeral expenses.
Fees yenyewe ilikuwa kulipa ni tatizo. Tunalipa nusu-nusu. Sasa nimepata mambo hizo morgue expenses sikuwa natarajia. Sasa ni kwamba serikali tu kama itatuchipa ili tusaidie, tulishampoteza mwanangu.
Elizabeth Wanjeri, the representative of the Law Society of Kenya Coast Branch, condemned the incident, calling on police to refrain from using excessive force against unarmed protesters.
The issues being raised are genuine, and I think killing people now makes people even more angry. So what we are saying is let the government deal with the issues and stop this use of excessive force on the population.
Sentiments echoed by human rights activists who are demanding for thorough investigation into the deaths that occurred during the anti-finance bill demonstrations.
We want to call not just to instruments of the nation, but all key stakeholders, including the international community.
Meanwhile, these were part of the scenes in Mombasa following violent protests that resulted in the destruction of property. At the Bima Towers, protesters broke into the Office of Civil Registration Services, causing extensive damage. The Office of Weights and Measures was also vandalized and furniture set ablaze. Huduma Center was similarly targeted. The state to engage in dialogue with the youth to avoid a repeat of the same.
Normalcy is slowly returning to the country after a long day of anti-protest bill protests rocked different parts of the country. Business people in different parts of the country resumed operations yesterday, with many counting losses occasioned by the destruction that we witnessed countrywide. Here now is a look at the anti-finance bill 2024 aftermath in the counties, as reported by my colleague, that is Khalid Abdullahi.
An easy calm returned in Nakuru a day after protests against the business and left scores injured. A spot check in the city's central business district established that business operations had resumed, even as some operators lamented losses after the protest was infiltrated by other elements that went on a looting spree. A considerable number of business owners and operators of public service vehicles expressed cautious optimism that the national consciousness displayed by the younger generation will help ensure that there is accountability in government. However, a cross-section of the business community in Nakuru condemned the protest and hampering investment. Meanwhile, the Youth for Youth Africa group have added their voice over the deployment of the Kenya Defence Forces following anti-finance bill protests. Speaking in Nyahururu town, CEO Youth for Youth Africa Dennis Ndereva and Chairman Mburu Githinji say they are in support of the direction taken by the Law Society of Kenya on the issue.
I'm here to call upon the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, to reject this finance bill and do not allow to sign it. We therefore urge the government and the well-being of our people to uphold the principles of justice, freedom and democracy. It is through respectful dialogue that we get to have mutual understanding and to hold together.
100 people were arrested in Naivasha after offices of the area MP Jane Kihara were told a Naivas supermarket looted.
First thing ilikuwa kuharibu reception, then my office hapo wakachoma paka viti, everything, laptop, whatever, table, desk, zilichomeka zote. After that wakaingia the other side kwa mheshimiwa.
Among the 130 people include scores of women who were nabbed looting the supermarket hours by the youths opposed to the Finance Bill 2024. Naivasha Sub-County Police Commander Stephen Kirui said that they had managed to recover some of the stolen items and were pursuing more suspects following the incident.
We managed to arrest about 130 persons, whom we have them at the cells at the present. We are processing them now. We want to arrange them to be charged in court for, of course, various crime committed within the town, because they started burning the constituency office, and then after that one, now they went to the Naivas. Another team went to Naivas.
Now let's look at business, where Rwanda University is set to become the third educational institution to set up a science and technology campus at the Konza Technopolis. Now, the Chief Executive Officer, Paul Okweri, says the first phase of the 20 billion shilling innovation campus will be completed by mid next year.
Rwanda University is said to become among the 140 investors that will be onboarded at the Konza Technopolis. The institution plans to build a 20 billion shillings campus at Konza in its expansion strategy.
Konza City offers us an opportunity to be able to provide very, very good access in an environment which is very, very progressive.
The campus will offer specialized training on science and technology.
Also do something about incubation, where you will get young people who will come up with ideas, assist them to implement their ideas.
Align its training model with the Stanford University at the Silicon Valley in California.
At Technopolis, Rwanda is in the right ecosystem within which institutions of higher learning and research will be able to collaborate and bring the linkage for the government, the private sector, and also the industry to create an innovation ecosystem.
The campus is an addition to the existing two institutions of higher learning, Institute of Technology and Science, and the Open University of Kenya opened campuses at the Technopolis.
Now, the government will leverage the Northern Water Collector projects to address water scarcity in the Machakos export processing zones. The Trade Ministry reports that the EPZ apparel sector recorded 7.8% growth in 2023 compared to 2022, with domestic sales worth 106.8 billion shillings.
Data from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers suggests that apparel exports currently stand at about 51 billion shillings. To address water scarcity in the Athi River apparel exports zone, the government will leverage the Northern Water Collector project, which targets to pump 140 million liters of water daily.
Tunajua ya kwamba kwa miezi michache ama wiki chache zijazo, hiyo Northern Connector itaweza kuleta maji kwa EPZ na pia kwa Athi River Township yenyewe, ndio watu wa Athi River wapate maji ya kutosha, ya kutumia na pia ya kibiashara.
Trade and Industry Kamiano says government is negotiating for market access in regional markets, including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, EAC, COMESA, and Tripartite Free Trade Area.
Our market access. On market access, my ministry is championing the post-2025 AGOA extension. Thus far, the U.S. Congress has signaled the possibility of extending the framework.
Vile tumeona kati ya karibu miezi sita ilipopita, miezi sita hivi tumekuwa na investments mpya kama 17, na hizi 17 natarajia kwamba itaweza kutupatia nafasi mingi zaidi za ajira. So kulingana na projection zangu kama afisa mtendaji, naona kwamba nafasi za ajira zitaongezeka.
A look at sports, where France was held to a 1-1 draw by already eliminated Poland to finish 1 point behind Austria, who beat Netherlands 3-2 and now occupy the first position with 6 points in Group D. France and Austria are already through to the last 16, which starts on Saturday. Meanwhile, Argentina proceeded to the quarterfinals of the 2024 Copa America following a 1-0 victory over Chile.
Kylian Mbappe scored his first ever Euro goal through a penalty in the 59th minute to put Robert Lewandowski equalized the score in the 79th minute.
It's the second time.
Ralf Rangnick's Austria produced a fantastic display to beat Netherlands 3-2 and top the group, while the Dutch took the third place. England and Denmark among the 11 teams that have progressed to the last 16 after they drew 0-0 with their opponents Slovenia and Serbia respectively in Group C. In the ongoing Copa America matches, minute goal against Chile was enough to secure a spot for Argentina in the quarters. The defending champions were the first nation to qualify for the quarterfinals and will now face Peru on Saturday. Meanwhile, in Group A, Canada got their first ever Copa America win following a 1-0 victory over Peru.
That's where we end the news this morning. Thank you so much for your company. My name is Yambo. Stay safe.